Hello and welcome to my tutorial on how to solve a Pyraminx. Now, as you may know, a lot of people who have never solved a Pyraminx before would think that the Pyraminx is harder than the 3x3. But in fact it is actually easier because there's a lot less pieces. Now to prove this, as you can see, you have 4 movable pieces here. Okay, so that's 4 so far. You have another 4 here, so that's 1, then there's another one there, 1 here as well, and 1 back here, so that's another 4, so that totals 8 so far. And there's edges. Okay, so that's 6 edges, and so 4 and 6 is 14, so therefore there's 14 pieces that you can solve on a Pyraminx. Now if you take a 3x3 for example, that you have 8 corners and 12 edges, and you have 6 centers, but they are not immovable. So therefore 8 and 12 is 20, so this has 20 movable pieces, this is 14, so therefore you have more movable pieces on this, the 3x3, so therefore there's a lot less pieces to solve on a Pyraminx, which means, as I said already, it's easier to solve. Now what I'll be teaching you in this tutorial is my kind of beginner's method. It shouldn't be too hard to follow, and there's 4 stages, and I'll be showing you what each of these 4 stages are in a few minutes. But first I'll go over the pieces and the moves, because they are somewhat different from the 3x3, so it's vital to learn them. So let's get started with that. Okay, so first we're going to go over the pieces. Now the pieces on a Pyraminx are somewhat similar, but also somewhat different to a Rubik's Cube. Now, just like the Rubik's Cube, there is 3 different types of pieces, and they are edges, corners, and tips. The edges, as you might guess easily, is these little pieces here, 2 colors, and they're very similar to those of a 3x3, as you can see. Now, one of the differences is, as you may know, that there's the tips. Now, there's technically no tips on a 3x3. There is just corners, edges, and centers. And on this, as I said, there's corners, edges, and tips. So the one difference is, there's tips on a Pyraminx and centers on a Rubik's Cube. So that's one difference anyway. Now the corners, as you may know, on a Pyraminx are different to those of a 3x3, because the corners are these pieces right here. Okay, now these 3 colors here belong to one single corner, so that should be cleared up if you might have any confusion about that. So these 3 colors belong to one corner, and as you might guess, these 3 corners belong to this one. These 3 belong to this one, and the same with this one back here. So the corners are somewhat different to a 3x3, where they're all grouped together, rather than being split kind of in a very strange looking way. But anyway, the final piece, as I said, is the tip, which is this one right here. And these look very, very similar to corners on a 3x3. Okay, so edges, corners, tips. The basic overview of that. Okay, so as long as you get that basic idea, you shouldn't have a problem understanding Pyraminx pieces. Okay, so now that you understand that, we're going to move on to edges. Moves. Sorry about that. So the moves on a Pyraminx. As you may know, there is 4 faces on a Pyraminx, so that means that there's less moves to do with the Pyraminx as well. So a Rubik's Cube has 6 faces, and it can have notations like OR, L prime, U prime, and all that. Whereas on a Pyraminx, it's a little bit different. It uses the following notations: so L, or U, and B. Now, as you may guess, that it should be easy to understand what notations these parts are assigned to. So L would actually be this. So each of these notations involves a double layer turn. So the tip piece here and the corner. So the tip and the corner is what you move according to the notation. So that's L. There's then OR, there is U, okay, and then back here is B, just like that. So that should be pretty easy to understand. It should be very easy to understand if you already know how to solve a 3x3, so it shouldn't be a bother. Now, as well, there's also inverse, so like or prime, and you might guess how the rest go, so like L prime, U prime, and B prime. Okay, so that's the main basic notation. Now the one type of notation that you have on a 3x3 that's not on a Pyraminx is notation with that has a 2 following it, like or2 and u2. Because say on a Rubik's Cube you'll do like u, u2, like that, and even u prime. Now the main difference on the Pyraminx is that, say, if I did or, that just does or, but if I did like or2 in that direction, okay, they would do this. But let's just reverse that, and let's do an or prime. So as you can see, an or prime would do the same thing as an or2, so we do not need an or2. So therefore, because of the fact that there's only 3 faces, you don't need to worry about things like or2, L2, U2, and B2. In one way or another, they are non-existent Pyraminx notations. So that should clear things up if you are a little bit confused on that. So there's only just normal notation and then notation followed by an inverse of it. Now there is 2 other types, and these are technically lowercase notation. Now these ones, small or, small l, small u, and small b, that these are kind of that in scrambling, that if you ever want to scramble your Pyraminx so you can time yourself for solving it, these would be the sort of notation for scrambling. So small or is actually turning the tip in the same direction as just normal or. Small l, the same thing. Small u, and you should get the basic idea for small b. And again, there's an inverse of each of those. Just do it counterclockwise. Shouldn't be too hard. Now, the one final type is still lowercase, but there's a slight change in it. First of all, small or and small l are the same, but instead of small u and small b, you can also have small f and small d. Now, why these come into handy is because of algorithms, because when you're doing algorithms, you can do single layer turns that are opposite to the tip. So, for example, small or is going like this, small or prime as well. Then there's like small L prime, and then like there's small d and small d prime. Okay, and the same kind with this, so like small f and small f prime. Okay, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem. So if you got confused by any of that, you can always just leave a comment asking me to further clear it up. So you should have a good idea of the pieces, and you should have a good idea about the moves. So like normal notation is just for the double layers like this. Then lowercase, if it's scrambling, it's to do with the tips. And if to do with algorithms for solving it, it's to do with the single layers that are opposite the tips. Okay, so that's the basic sort of idea behind the pieces and the moves. So again, if you have any questions on them, leave a comment below, and I will get back to you. So let's get on to the method itself. Okay, so now as long as you understand about the moves and the pieces, that we're going to get started with the method. Now as I said, there's 4 stages involved in the method. Now I'm just going to give a brief description about them before I actually start teaching you how to get to each stage and eventually how to solve the Pyraminx. So let's start with that. Okay, so stage 1. This would involve us solving the tips, and it should be pretty easy to follow and easy to understand. Okay? Okay, so the next stage, stage 2, will just be explaining how to solve the corners. Okay, so it should be just like the tips. and this should be easy to follow, and it shouldn't be too much of a bother to learn. Okay, so stage 3 is basically where we're going to solve the first 3 edges, and you know, this is going to be the first stage, which involves like algorithms, but they should be very easy to understand. Okay, and then the final stage, stage 4, is basically where we're going to get the rest of the entire cube solved. Now, this stage would basically be like the same to the PLL stage of doing the Rubik's Cube. And that's basically an overview of all the different stages. As long as you understand them, you shouldn't have a problem understanding what will be going on during the Pyraminx method. Okay, so let's get started with the very first stage. Okay, so stage 1. Now, as I said, the only thing we're going to be doing in this stage, is solving the tips. Now, the thing about when solving the tips is that it is the most extremely easiest stage when doing this. What I mean by this is, say, I'm going to choose a tip, such as, say, this one. Now, as you can see, it has green, blue, and red. Now, the colors all the way around here have the exact same colors. So, just by doing this, I can solve that tip. Now, as you can see, I turned that very piece and no other piece was affected. I can show you another example. Say yellow, blue, green, and also, as you can see, those exact colors are around the side here. And I can turn this and solve that. Now, as you might have noticed, that just by turning these two pieces, no others were affected. So what I mean by this is that no matter how much you turn even one tip, no matter how much time, say, this one is turned, no other piece will be affected. And this is what's called, in one way or another, an independent piece. So basically, even if someone has never solved a Pyraminx before, that they can solve the tips, because all it is simply doing is just turning this just to line up all the colors, and you are one move away, like per tip, on solving each of the tips. So basically, I wouldn't see why this is the most hardest stage, because all it is doing tips. Even if someone was completely new to a Pyraminx, they could see that these colors around here, for example, matched all the colors on the tips, and then just turn the tip until it lines up. I'd say that this would be the most easiest stage, so I wouldn't be like worried about getting this stage. Like, to be honest, it is the most easiest stage, so don't be spending, say, ages on it. If you think about it, just use your common sense. Okay, so as long as you basically, as long as you understand that these are independent pieces, you will not have a problem at all during this stage. Okay, so next, stage 2. Okay, so stage 2. In this stage, we're just going to be solving the corners. Now, in my opinion, solving the corners on a Pyraminx is the equivalent of solving the cross on a Rubik's Cube. Now, I find the easiest way to do this is find each of the tips that has, say, a corner that I choose, a corner that has a color that I choose. So what I mean by this is, say, I want to choose random color red. Okay, so this is one of the corners I'm going to be going for. Now I look around the cube. Here's another, and here's a final one. So the three ones belong. So the three red corners belong to this tip. The side belong to this corner. But like, basically, if you think about it, yeah, this large area here, you can just call it tip, sure. This tip, and this tip. And basically, if you think about it, then that these tips are going to be meeting up on this face here. So I put this face in the front, and then I look around and see its position on the tip. So say the red is right here, so I rotate it in, and I look at this one and rotate it in. So all I did there was choose a color, look for the three corners that had that color, and looked at which face all those tips belonged to, and then rotated each of those corners until they were in together. So that sounds pretty easy. So pretty much it's just looking around, finding which face all those tips belong to, and rotating all the tips in. When you're done that, then you can worry about this tip. If you pick any one of these colors on the corner here, around the corner, and you look down to the other two corners, if this color here didn't match these two, you would have to turn the tip. If this color here does match them, you don't have to, as you might guess. Now, as you can see here, obviously, that we will need to turn the tip. All we simply need to know is which way does it need to go. Well, this is yellow, and this is green, so it doesn't go there, and this is yellow here, so it does have to go here. So all we simply do is turn. So that's the basic overview of how to solve the corners. So for the first tree, just simply choose a color, find the three corners that contain that color, then find the face that those three tips are on, and just simply rotate each of the tips until the color you choose is on one face. And then the last tip, all you have to do is turn it until all three colors feature on the same face. So that's a basic overview of what to do, and just keep on practicing, and you will eventually get to solve the corners just quickly. Okay, so just practice away. Okay, so stage 3. In this stage, we're just gonna be solving three edges that basically all share one color. So say it's like I choose a face such as red, find the edges and put them in. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to just go ahead and choose a color. But what you can do is look around the Pyraminx, and you want to find a face where you have at least three edges unsolved. Okay, so that's the main thing you should look for. Now if there is a piece already solved, you can go ahead for one of those faces, such as if this piece was solved, and I could go ahead and solve these, but it's not solved, so that's something you can't do. But one thing I would recommend you do is look for a face that has at least three edges that are not solved. And if you're lucky, if there's one edge already solved, see if you can try and solve the edges that go into the rest of that face. So I'm just going to go ahead for red since it's at the front. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in one of the edges that needs to go into place. Now I have an edge at the back here, so it has red and green. Now I look around the Pyraminx, and see where it needs to go. Okay, so it needs to go here, because we have the red corners here, and the green corners here, and the red corners here. So I'm going to need to get this down to here. Now what I want to do is I'm going to need to get this corner into either one of these two spots. So what I do is I can just do something like, say, like a B prime or even a small f. So one of those two, yes, either a B prime, or a small f prime. Okay, so use B prime if you have the edge that you're looking for at the back, and say you are looking for, if you have an edge, at the back, you can also use a B prime or an F or a small f prime to get it into its position. Okay, so as long as it's in one of these two spaces in comparison to where it needs to go, you're good. Now the first thing you'll need to know is which of these two does it need to go, because of the fact that we can't just go ahead and insert it. Now what we can do is that if it's in either one of these two, the sticker in either one of these two positions needs to be the same as this. So because this is in one of these two positions, and it matches these three corners, we can go ahead. So if the corner that you're looking for is right here, and it needs to go here, and the sticker here is the same color as these three corners, you can do U or prime, U prime or, and it solves the that edge. Okay, now we're going to have a look around to see if we can find another. Okay, what we do, we have one right here. Okay, now I'm going to rotate it there. So same as before. Okay, so pretty easy. Alright, and we're going to go ahead for the last one and do the exact same. Okay, so those are those edges solved. However, there's a good few more algorithms that you can use, and I'm just going to show you them there.